Today, we're going to talk about things that most doctors don't take the time to explain clearly.
My name is Nick Hutchison of Book Thinkers.
Hi, this is Dr. Oz Garcia.
This is John Lee.
My name is Dr. Wendy Suzuki.
Hey, this is Richard Dolan.
This is Jason Pfeiffer.
This is Todd Herman.
My name is Georgia Clare.
This is Nir Ayal.
My name is Chris Bailey.
And this podcast
makes sense. Welcome to the Makes Sense with Dr. JC podcast. Have you ever sat in a doctor's office, feeling like a number in a waiting room, wondering why modern medicine seems to wait until something goes wrong before it actually can help you? You go in feeling exhausted. Maybe you've got brain fog. Maybe the weight won't come off like it used to. And the answer you get is usually something like, your labs look normal, you're just getting older. But what if the answer is missing the bigger picture? Today's guest believes that feeling tired, foggy, and inflamed is not the inevitable cost of aging. Dr. Darshan Shah is the founder of Next Health, one of the most innovative and proactive healthcare and longevity centers in the entire world. After years as a trauma and reconstructive surgeon, Darshan witnessed firsthand what happens when we wait until disease shows up before we take action. That experience pushed him to rethink medicine entirely. He's one of the leading voices in health span optimization, metabolic health, and longevity, helping people move from reactive sick care into a future where individuals become the CEOs of their own biology. So today, we're going to talk about things that most doctors don't take the time to explain clearly. Why your normal labs might actually be a warning sign. Why do people in their 40s and 50s suddenly feel like their internal battery is drained? We're also going to talk about the truth of GLP-1 drugs and weight loss, why muscle mass may be the single greatest predictor of longevity, and how anyone listening can begin extending their health span, the years that you actually feel good. Dr. Darshan Shah, welcome to the Dragon's Lair. Welcome to the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast. Dr. Darshan Shah, I'm so honored and privileged that you've decided to join us on our show today.
Oh, it's my honor, totally. I'm so excited to be here after we met in person, and now here we are a few weeks later.
It's always so much cooler to have met somebody and really get put your finger on the pulse of their energy and their vibration. And I will get to that in a second. But one of the first things that I like to do on the show is a little segment that I call What I Like About You. Yeah. And I just don't think a lot of people get enough, nice things said about them. So I've done a little bit of research, but I've got my own opinion. So if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to share. I mean, is that okay if I tell you what I like about you?
Of course. Why would that not be? I'm very humble, so it's very
You've been
hard
waiting for this moment all your life,
Thank you.
In any case, one of the things that I noticed right away is that, you've got a lot of accomplishments and credentials. So, I have the utmost respect for everything that you've accomplished. So congratulations on all of that stuff. But I had the opportunity, as we just said, to see you take the stage, meet you in person, interview you after the Limitless live show where our mutual friend, Jim Quick, who I actually watched one of your podcast episodes with him when I was doing a little bit of stalking. So that was kind of fun. But what I found is that, and you're going to probably take this initially the wrong way, but obviously it's not, you don't act your age. And that was the first thing. And what I mean by that is you don't talk about your career and the reason that you do what you do like normal people. You speak like an excited child about it. So it was one of the things I noticed. And if people follow you on social media, I mean, like, you look genuinely passionate and excited about what you do. And, there's not a lot of that going on. So it's very, very cool. And it appears that your passion and your intention is really just about empowering people, before accolades and achievements and things like that, empowering people with knowledge, insights, and tools to optimize their health and longevity. And that appears to be your primary intention and interest. And I like that. That's hard to find in a world where most people seem, to be honest with you, even if they're really good at what they do, burnt out, and have become victims of their circumstances and fighting the machine. I can see that you're genuinely excited. And I can also attest that you're a very kind person. I mean, people will pick up on that. This guy's always got a smile on his face. He's a very busy man, but he's always going to entertain a conversation. And I would say that in general, you're somebody that would be the kind of person that somebody would be honored to call friend. So I'm going to start working on that myself, but I want to.
We are friends. Thank you so much.
Outside of event and podcast friends, I'm gonna really work on that because I can see that there's great value. So, Dr. Darshan Shah, I want to welcome you to what I call the Dragon's Lair.
I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for that. That was really special, and what a great way to start a podcast. I love it.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I like to do, and I guess that would be some sort of a hidden desire to have somebody do it to me one day. So if you ever feel compelled, I know that you have a podcast. Maybe you can just talk about me one day.
Let's make it happen.
So before we dive into the real cool topics, that obviously a lot of people are going to be excited about, and it's very ironic because I've just naturally been attracting different groupings of guests. Before you, the episodes that are coming are Dr. Wendy Suzuki and, Dr. Oz was just on the show. So that probably has a lot to do with my general interest in metabolic health and longevity and stuff. I'm a 54-year-old man. So a lot of the stuff that you do selfishly, I'm very fascinated with and working on. And my friend is Jim Quick. So, we talk about this stuff all the time. But before we get into longevity and the science behind it, what I'd love to do is just get a little bit of the origin story because I think it's so relevant. So from what I can see, it seems that you started your career in trauma and reconstructive surgery, which is really fascinating. And I know that you wrote a book called Making the Cut, which is not really what your discussion is about now, but there's a lot of back history there. And that means that you were literally seeing people probably in some cases in their worst days, in the worst parts of their lives. So the question is this: what were you noticing back then about the downstream effects of lifestyle? Because something prompted you to look elsewhere. So what were you noticing about the downstream effects of lifestyle and in the patients that you were treating? That's what I would love to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So, I started down this path as just a regular doctor. I finished medical school. I graduated from residency at Mayo Clinic. I started my practice and I was doing a lot of reconstructive surgery and then also some cosmetic surgery. And what I noticed was there are a lot of unhealthy people out there having surgery. And that's what prompted me to write the book, Making the Cut, because I kept saying the same things over and over again. Like, just get healthy. You might not need the surgery. You have to be healthy before surgery so that you have a better outcome. And then I would, go into the reasons why. And that was one of my main purposes for writing that first book that I wrote. But then it's so ironic. I actually became a victim of the same problems that my patients were suffering from. So because I was stressed out, I was working 14-hour days, not sleeping great, eating a lot of garbage, I myself became very unhealthy. I was like 40 pounds overweight, but I also had developed diabetes and high blood pressure and an autoimmune disease. And so at that point in my life, this was about 12 years ago, I decided I need to get healthy. This is just this is too important for me to, number one, not be healthy because I'm too young. I was 40 something years old. And secondly, I was also, I just had my first child. I was a very young dad and I wanted to stay alive and healthy for him. And lastly, you kind of feel like a hypocrite. Like, here I am telling everyone to get healthy before surgery, and I myself do not embody that. So I went and learned the science of health. And what I really realized back then was that a lot of the things that we tell people to get healthy in the medical world, in the disease care world, is really only what they need to hear when it's too late. And all the knowledge that you need that prevents you from getting unhealthy in the first place, I didn't even really have a lot of education in that space, the space around nutrition, exercise, hormones, et cetera. And so I went out there and learned about these fields through learning functional medicine. And I completely flipped my entire health journey around in like 8 months. And I was like, now this is the piece that I need to add to the Western medical part of this. And so that's what prompted me to just start a brand new career. I actually quit surgery in the next few years, wound down, and handed my practice off to some younger individuals. And I went into the science of health optimization, chronic disease reversal, functional medicine, and now all of that together is lumped longevity medicine. And so our clinics now are all longevity medicine clinics.
It's so fascinating. I have the unfair advantage of interviewing so many people, and I hear the same story all the time. It's just like good intentions, going the right path. I mean, I was a chiropractor and I had a huge practice and I was 80 pounds overweight, teaching
Oh,
people about, natural wellness and stuff. Wendy Suzuki, same thing. She just all of a sudden realized she was not dating anybody and she was fat and she went on her own selfish journey and uncovered, the joy of optimization before she decided, just like you. Just a question off the cuff. What's the problem there? Because this seems to be a big, kink in the chain of healthcare, in that a doctor that's not practicing what they preach probably would not be prompted to take another path like this. Is this stuff that's not taught in mainstream medicine? This idea of leading by example and being the change that you're inviting other people to
yeah.
embark on.
So, you really have to look at the history of medicine to understand why this is the case, because really the healthcare system that we have, all of the doctors, the MDs out there that are in the hospitals practicing, clinics with hundreds of patients, it was never meant to keep people healthy. It was
Right.
never built for that. It was built around the concept that, humans get into horrible situations like accidents, overwhelming infections, heart attacks, et cetera, and they need their life saved. And so that's why the medical system was developed. It was developed around the concept that when you need a doctor is when you really need a doctor. And so what happened then is that chronic disease came about, and this chronic disease started about 80 years ago, really. And then we can talk about why that happened. And all of a sudden, people are coming to their doctor like, I'm not feeling good. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And the doctors really were looking at their symptoms and they're trying to figure out, how do we resolve these symptoms? But there was really no education for doctors, and this is still the case today, about the science of nutrition, the science of sleep, the science of exercise, and how that can prevent you from getting sick in the first place. Because the system was never built to prevent people from getting sick. It was built to treat disease once it became a major problem. And look, thank God we have this system, right? Like if you get hit by a bus,
Right.
if you get stage 4 cancer and need surgery, we need this system to take care of us, but it was never built for everything that precedes it. And that's why it is that way. Is even the doctors are not taught that, and they don't practice it because they don't even know the information,
So when you went and made that decision to become a medical doctor, was that what you wanted to do, or were you just kind of this dreamer that was hoping that have the flexibility to do other stuff, or did you have the awakening? I just think that people are really fascinated when they meet somebody like you and hope that their doctor would wake up like you do, because a lot of people are trapped in the system as well, but now they're going to find out about Next Health. But did you have aspirations of just treating sickness? It's like a don't hate the player, hate the game kind of a thing. But do you feel like this is something that you always wanted to do, or?
No, not really. When I went in medical training, I wanted to be a surgeon. And more specifically, my passion was trauma surgery. I mean, I wanted to help people, but I wanted to help them doing trauma and general surgery. And so that's what I did. And so, when you're doing surgery on someone, you're really doing it for like really bad issues, especially,
Right.
Car accidents and gunshot wounds and things like that. So that's why I went into this field. And I had this awakening after, like I said, I myself got very unhealthy and I needed to turn my health around. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the big missing piece of our healthcare system. And so, rather than try to fix our healthcare system, and I'm making air quotes for people that are listening, like you cannot fix $1 trillion system that was built to take care of complex problems. And so I said, you know what? Let's just make a new system. This is a disease care system. Let's create a real health optimization system. And so our system of clinics is like the first step in that, where, fine, you have your primary care doctor. He put you on blood pressure medications. He's put you on medicines for diabetes. You come to us then to help get you healthy so you can eventually reverse those chronic diseases and maybe even get off your medications. And that's what we do.
Well, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I think I speak for everybody when I say that we're really happy that you gained 40 pounds and you felt like crap.
Right.
Otherwise you'd just be, we wouldn't have Next Health. So let's talk about.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but like on that point, like I did see like 3 or 4 doctors, and 2 of them are concierge doctors that I spent a lot of money to see. And they both gave me more pills. Like their solution was, here's a different pill, here's a newer pill, here's a better pill.
Yeah.
And there was never this concept of changing lifestyle, And so
Right.
it was really really a huge kind of leap in my own brain. Like I'm seeing the best of the best doctors, but they really don't have the solutions that I'm looking for.
Yeah. Just not the best for your situation.
Yeah.
And, just from my vantage point, it appears that there's a natural transformative process where human beings are starting to, the whole sick and tired of being sick and tired. It seems like there's a big awakening right now. So, there's never been a better time for people like you to sprout up. So I see that Next Health, if we look at mainstream medicine, it's like if the herd is moving one way and somebody strays from the herd, very often, they hate that because you're highlighting something that they kind of know that needs to be done. So Next Health in that sense is built around a pretty radical idea. And the way I interpret it is that Next Health should be something that is shifting from radical medicine to proactive optimization, which is a pretty radical word in that world. So what was the original vision that you had when you first created Next Health? Because I would assume it's evolved.
Yeah, so we live in this current time where now longevity has become like a buzzword and there's so much attention around it. But when I started Next Health, it was 10 years ago and no one even was talking longevity. Most people were talking about how do you go see the primary care doctor that has the best tools available to treat disease. And so when I started down this path and created Next Health as a clinic, it was really around the concept of functional medicine. And this was a new concept that Dr. Jeffrey Bland and Mark Hyman and Dr. Perlmutter, they were just bringing to light, and they were fighting the battle. They were like trying to tell people like, look, you have disease, but there's ways to reverse it. And then, what happened was the mainstream medical establishment thought that these people were selling snake oil, right? Disease reversal, that's ridiculous. There's no such thing. Once you have a disease, it's permanent, is what they were screaming at us and trying to make us all feel as though we were practicing, number one, not practicing science-based medicine, but also number two, trying to say that we're trying to sell snake oil. And, it was a lot of an uphill battle. Number one, trying to tell the general public what we were doing, but also number two, with other physicians that were basically telling us that we should be shutting down these practices and reporting us to medical boards, et cetera, et cetera. And, look at where we come now. We were prescribing hormone replacement therapy when most doctors are telling people, do not do that. It will cause cancer, et cetera, because we knew replacing hormones, both men and women, is a game changer in people's health journeys. And there wasn't a real risk of cancer. And so now everything's 180 finally, and we can see the mainstream medical establishment finally wrapping their heads around like, oh, we were wrong. Hormone replacement therapy is healthy for you, and not being on hormones is actually what's causing a lot of rapid progression towards chronic disease. And the hormone replacement therapy is just one example of multiple aspects of our care that were poo-pooed by medicine even as soon as 10 years ago, and now everything's come completely the opposite direction.
Yeah, you mentioned that longevity is like a buzzword now. It's like trending. And it's interesting because if you look at the emerging world of something that you would be considered a first runner in, it's almost moving the likes of AI now. It's like you go to Jim Quick's event and you walk through the convention hall and it's like, holy cow. There are so many just amazing new things that we can get our hands on. Jim's my neighbor, and whenever I go to his house, I'm laying on some bed with lights on me and all of these things, and it's all really, really cool stuff. So one of the biggest, and I hear you talk a lot about this, and this is something that I think is going to really, really resonate with people. One of the biggest frustrations people have, and I saw this when I was in practice as well, is they go to their doctor and they feel exhausted. They have brain fog, low motivation, and they're overweight even, and they have all the markers that you can even see and like pretty much guess that this is not a person that is expressing health, but their doctor says your labs are normal. I hear that all the time. People say, oh no, I went to my doctor and he says my labs are normal. So help us understand this, because I know you're passionate about this. How can somebody feel terrible even when their lab work falls inside what we call normal range?
The labs they're testing you for are disease diagnostic labs. So doctors are stressed out and they're seeing way too many people and they only have 15, 20 minutes a visit, and they're looking at those results on a piece of paper which is generated by a computer, is based on when you can get diagnosed with a disease. I'll give you a perfect example.
Do me a favor, hit subscribe and like the video if you're vibing with this. It helps us reach more people who need to hear this message. Share this with a friend and comment with a topic that you might want to hear in future episodes. I want to make sure that we're talking about things that matter most to you.